On today's episode, I have the absolute privilege of having Hillary McVeigh on the podcast. And I really wanted her to come on because she is a human design reader and teacher. And for me, human design was really such a permission slip and activation for following my intuition. I remember about 4 or 5 years ago, I discovered that I was a manifesting generator and that I had this sacral authority. And I don't remember anything else from what I learned all those years ago. But from that moment that I heard that I was meant to follow that gut response, that hell yes, that full body yes, that was really when this journey into intuition and everything began. And over time, of course, I ignored it and I had to really learn how to trust it and build up. And over the last 3 years, that's really been emphasized. But I just remember being so in awe of how it was so accurate. It was so true. And I had a reading with Hillary, I think about 10 months ago now, and it was the way she does it is so intuitive. It's really natural to her. It's such a pleasure to simply listen. And it's also incredibly empowering. So if you want to get a reading, I highly, highly recommend it, with Hillary, of course. And also just tune into who feels right for you. There are a lot of readers out there and there are a lot of teachers, but again, trust that intuition and see who you're drawn to. I discovered Hillary because I asked a friend who'd had a reading with her in Mexico if she had any recommendations, and she recommended Hillary. And at that point, Hillary was back in Australia. So the internet is an amazing thing to connect people. And yeah, we talk all things intuition, the different types of authority. So there are quite a few different types of authorities in human design. I think there were 6 or 7. And there's kind of the main ones that the majority of the population have. And then we also go into deeper analysis of kind of, how our intuition can be our biggest teacher and how really allowing things to fall away, that our intuition is saying no, and kind of also deciphering the difference between, is our intuition saying no or is it fear? And I'm very grateful that, Hillary was so happy to share everything and also some personal stories as well. So I hope they really resonate with you. And I felt so empowered and just so energized after this conversation. So I hope that you do too and learn a little bit more about human design. If you've never, or you have no idea what I'm talking about in regards to human design, I put some links in the show notes, and you can kind of go and discover what your chart is or what it looks like or what your authority or your energy type is, and go from there. But as Hillary says, it's an experiment. It is a fascinating permission slip. And just, you don't have to follow absolutely everything from the get-go, but just giving yourself that permission to have fun with it and experiment and see what happens when you do actually follow your human design and what you are, how you are designed, because it is really unique and beautiful to each and every one of us. And I hope you enjoy the episode and feel as energized, as empowered as I did afterwards. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Fully Blooming. I'm so excited because today I've got this amazing guest on who, when I was starting to plan out my podcast, she was one of the first people that popped into my head because I had a human design reading with her, I think only 10 months ago, and I listen back to it all the time. And it just is such a confirmation of everything. And the way that I'm going to introduce you now, but Hillary read my human design. It was so intuitive and it it just flowed, and it was just magic. I could go on and on about it. But when I first started thinking about this podcast, it was just this initial, of course she's got to be on, because there was so much about intuition. There's so much within human design that gave me the permission to really trust and follow that intuition. So of course I had to invite you on. So yeah, thank you so much for being here. And I'd love if you could just introduce yourself, where you are, and yeah, go from there.
Thank you so much. That's music to my ears. That really warms my heart. That's all I could ever hope for, that it, helps you feel more connected to your intuition, to yourself. And yeah, imagine if we all knew how to do that, or we all just trusted that inner voice. So that makes me so happy to hear. So my name is Hillary. I am a human design teacher and reader. I am all the way over in Australia. And yes, I share this beautiful modality that really transformed and helped in my life. Before I was a human design reader, I was a lawyer, and I was going through this period of feeling super inauthentic, really unsure of my direction, and I felt like the soul was being sucked out of me daily. And I found human design right at the exact moment. It was actually just before my Saturn return, and I felt like it was this permission slip and understanding of who I truly was. And it made so much sense why the direction I was going down wasn't aligned for me. It wasn't enough that I was getting panic attacks and my body was telling me that this isn't right. I needed something, a blueprint or a chart or someone else to tell me there is a reason you're feeling like this, and there's nothing wrong with you. You just need to reconnect to your true self, your intuition. And you have all the answers there. You are your own authority. So that was a really beautiful part of my discovery of human design, and that's what I hope to give other people.
Wow, I love that. Yeah, we were just speaking beforehand about Saturn Return, so we'll definitely touch on that. But I think it's definitely that permission slip. And I remember when you were doing my reading, I'd done a lot of bits and bobs of looking online and things, but the way you connected everything, and it was just these it wasn't light bulb moments, because it was almost this inner knowing that I already had, but it was just this, like you could just soften and be like, okay, I don't need to fight this anymore. I can just be. That's rather than pushing it away because society says otherwise or whatever. It was just this right, we're going full into it, and let's just see where it leads me and where it goes. But I love that, just softening into it and letting it be.
You can trust
it. For those of you, that trust. I mean, my clients are like, yes, Ola, we know, trust.
Everything. Like if you're not listening to your gut or your intuition, and it's speaking all the time, and you're not trusting it's almost like it stops speaking so much. You have to develop a relationship with your inner voice and your intuition, because if there isn't that two-way trust and receiving and at least acknowledging it and being honest with yourself, then that's when you foster a deeper relationship and it becomes stronger and stronger. So it's always just practice. We didn't learn this in school, so it's just practice later on in life.
Absolutely. And I think it's really interesting because different people will follow their intuition in different ways. So I guess that leads me on to the perfect way of, there are different types of intuition, and there are different, so for me, I'm a sacral. So it is very much like, I believe, if I remember correctly. So it's very like gut instinct. It was always that feeling of yes or no. But yeah, that's taken a really long time to develop and really tune in. And there's so many kind of nuances, and your mind will try to trick you. But I'd love to know, like, what are the different types of intuition? And I think, so many people don't resonate with that gut feeling, or things change overnight or things. So
yes. And that was the thing. I never resonated with the gut instinct, and people would say, trust your gut, follow your gut. And I was like, am I missing something? Is there this feeling inside of me that I can't access? Did I miss the gut gene? And when I discovered human design, it made so much sense because it showed me how my intuition spoke. So this is a beautiful part of human design, is that it gives you ability to connect to the voice in which yours speaks through. So we no longer try and outsource our authority. We don't try and ask other people for their opinions. We don't ask our parents or rely on societal expectations or even governments or anything to make decisions for us, because at the end of the day, life is just a series of decisions and choices. And if you're making choices that align with you and your intuition, that's when you move towards your path. That's when you get to where you're meant to go. But when we're making decisions and choices based on external authorities, what other people think we should do, or what society expects of us, that's when you end up like how I did in this law cubicle, wondering how the hell I got here. So that is, and as Ola was saying, human design will show you exactly how it is, and it's called your authority. So if you've looked up on your chart, look at what your authority is. And this is what is the backbone of human design, because it's not telling you anything that you don't know. As Ola says, it's just showing you this is the voice to listen to. So as Ola said, she's a sacral authority. So with that, it is really important to be trusting your gut. And if you're a sacral authority, then you are going to be a generator or a manifesting generator or automatically. So this is where we hear a lot about the trust your gut, especially in the spiritual community, or I feel like it's mainstream now, and it is this yes, no response. So your strategy as well, if you are sacral, means that you are always moving through life and responding to external stimulus. So you hear something, you touch something, you see something, and it's about tapping into that internal gut, which is fueled by your desire, your sacral. It's all about passion and life force energy. So when your gut expands and lights up and feels like yes, you feel pulled towards it, this is a clue that it's made for you. And it's not random, it's not by accident. This is where you're designed to go. Everyone that has that sacral response is going to light up for different things. It's not by coincidence that, for example, that your gut lights up for this type of work, and that you're wanting to start a podcast and you love to travel. It's because that's what you're meant to be doing. To other people, it can be lit up for, I don't know, pottery or event planning or engineering or even law. So everyone has their thing, and your gut is always going to show you if you have sacral authority. And you're going to know in the moment when you first come across something. It's going to be on first instant if you're sacral authority. Often you might go in a bit of a circle around and think about other different options, and it's always will come back to that original gut response of like yes, expansion, or no, constriction, shortness of breath, feeling like oh no, icky, or forcing yourself because you think you have to, or there's an obligation. It's really honoring your sacred no, that it's not meant for you, and it's not meant even for the people that you might think you're letting down. So that's the sacral authority. That's what most people will be. Well, I shouldn't say most people, actually. The most people would be emotional authority, which is the next one. Do you want me to go into the next one?
Yes, please. I have a few friends who are emotional, and we've been like testing it out almost. We're like, okay, sleep on it, and then we'll see what happens.
It's important. So I'm emotional as well. So I very firsthand understand the conundrum of being an emotional authority. So if you have an emotional authority, there's a little bit of a caveat to your decision-making process, because if you have this type of authority, you have a natural emotional wave. So in the background, there's a biochemical process where there are natural highs and lows, and it can affect the way you see the world. So regardless of what's happening in your life, regardless if everything's going amazingly, you can still experience this emotional low. And what we can often do as humans, and trying to, our overthinking minds, trying to make sense of these and trying to create a story or a narrative around why we're feeling a certain way, when really you're just on your emotional high or your emotional low. So with these natural highs and lows, it can affect the way you see the world. And in saying that, it's really about giving yourself time to make decisions. So when you're responding or you're moving through the world, you're always coming back to, if you have even got this sacral, if you're a generator or manifesting generator, but you have emotional authority, it's about seeing how your gut feels over time. It's never feeling like you need to make an in the moment decision. And this can be hard, the way we live, because sometimes people want to know answers straight away, but you have to be your own advocate and give yourself time to make that decision, whether you say, like, let me get back to you, or let me check my calendar, I'll sleep on it and have a think about it. Because what can happen if you say yes straight away because you're on an emotional high, you can often wake up the next day and regret that. You might have promised that you'll help someone move, or you promised that you would move in with them, or go traveling with them, or start a business with them, when really there was no clarity in the now. And it's about always giving yourself time to make a decision, because you will feel so different based on where you are in your emotional wave. So we want to be staying with whatever sticks around, whatever still feels good in your body, what brings a smile to your face, what makes you feel content. It's almost like it's not even about like what makes you so excited, because you'll often just be on your emotional high then. I always find like it's just this quiet contentness of like, yes, that'd feel nice. But people with an emotional authority, they're really indecisive. I can definitely attest to this, because you're naturally going a big wave. You go through like the highs and lows of the decision. So pretend you're thinking about, okay, if I enroll in this course, you go through the high points of the course where you're loving it and you're thinking this was the best thing I ever invested in. And then you'll go through the inevitable low moments of, I don't really actually have time for this. Why did I choose this at this time? You go through the whole process before you've even made the decision. So that's why you can feel a little bit indecisive. And we say that it's about 80% sure is a good sign. So, the saying, if it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no, that doesn't apply to emotional authorities, because often nothing is ever a hell yes. You just need to trust that 80%, but trust that there is a reason something is sticking around. It feels good in your body. And only be making decisions when you're feeling more neutral, when you're feeling like, there's such a big difference between the highs and lows. And it doesn't mean it's this constant wave. Like, you can often just be neutral a lot of the time, but the highs can feel really ecstatic and you're bouncing on the walls. You've got a spring in your step. And then the lows can be a lot more melancholy, a lot more down, and you can be a lot harder and more pessimistic on yourself. So that's not when we want to be making decisions on either of those. It's when we're neutral and when you've given yourself time. And then we've got...
Well, that's... Yeah. I mean, it's fascinating because there are so many different nuances to it. So for me, I know my struggles with coming up against using that sacral authority of being, if I don't do something in that moment, after, like, as soon as a decision comes in, if I don't do something straight away, I'm not fully grounded or fully kind of centered, my mind will come in and play all the games. And that's my kind of lessons and kind of playground, I guess, of really having to trust and learn to follow my intuition, and just really being like, right, in that moment, I've just got to go and do it, because I know my mind will come in and play the games and the stories and the beliefs. And for me, that's the way that I've learned kind of about my shadow side and like all the beliefs that I have that don't really align anymore. But then with emotional authority, there's, I guess, maybe the external pressure of, well, we need a decision now, and it's not really how the world functions at the moment. And it's very, would you say that the world is kind of more directed towards that sacral kind of decision making, and like everything happens now, and it's very yes or no, like we need an answer now?
Yes, for sure. It's made for sacral, and sacral can actually be more like frustrated with the emotional process, especially if you're in relationship with someone that's emotional. And it's like, how can you not know? Like, give me a decision. Like, are we going to go on this trip or not? Or are we going to go to your in-laws' place next week or not? Or are we going to go to this party tonight? Like, it can be really frustrating for people that do have that sacral response. To other people that we just don't know. And there's no clarity. It's almost like I have no idea. And a lot of the time I just let people make decisions for me because I never gave myself that time. But you made a really good point, and you're not the only one that has the mind that tries and talks themselves out of the intuition. So your intuition, it speaks in the moment, and it will continue to speak in the moment through the emotional process, but it's really deciphering the voice of the intuition. This is for all the authority types, all the intuition types. It's really knowing how yours speaks and then being able to decipher and differentiate when it's your mind, when you can hear that, that mind that's playing on your insecurities, that's in the past or projecting into the future. That's not your intuition. So people with emotional authority have to be really, really clear, or almost like guard against the mind, because over that process, that mind will speak a lot, and it can really talk you out of things a lot of the time because it doesn't want change. Your mind wants to keep you safe. It wants to keep you exactly where you are. It doesn't like risk, which protects us from hurting ourselves or endangering our lives, but at the same time it's just keeping us small and stuck a lot of the time. So with that, when it's the emotional authority, you have to be really it can be hard because that voice can really talk you out of things, but it's always just trusting, coming back to the trust of, this feels right for me, this will bring me joy. And it's regardless of what it sounds on paper, because there's been times in my life where things that could have been sounded like an amazing opportunity and did on paper, but when I actually thought about doing it, it made me sad. It made me that's kind of sad if I did that, even though to everyone else it would sound amazing and so exciting. So that's how you trust it and play with it.
And I think there's a couple more authorities.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So there is the Splenic. We'll go through the other ones a lot quicker because they're a bit more rare. The Splenic is still a lot more common. So if you're a Splenic authority, you're either going to be a projector or a manifestor, which is the different energy types. So with that, you are here to follow your instinct and this quiet inner knowing. So you would also relate to this because you also have your spleen defined. So you have this instinct, but you're still following your gut because your authority is like your MVP, your most valued player. It's your the captain of your ship. So you can have multiple voices, but the one that you're following is your sacral. But with the spleen, it's a lot more quieter. It definitely comes in the moment, but the difference between the spleen, it has a very, very, very strong no because it's related with safety and survival. So if something is not right for you, your spleen will light up and make it very, very known. So what can happen is you really chugging along in your flow, doing your thing, and there can be this no that says, okay, this isn't the right time, this isn't the right thing. So your spleen's really connected with time, and it's just a knowing. It's not something so much like with the gut, how you can call on demand and, you can just ask the gut a yes or no question. You can ask it anything and it'll tell you and it'll show you, whereas the spleen is a lot more nuanced, a lot more quieter. But I see it as the deepest, such a strong intuition. So again, it's the yes-no response. You're going to know in the moment. Spleens are going to know in the moment straight away. They're very, very intuitive. And it's following what feels right, what feels safe, and what the timing is all about timing. So it can be a good thing, but it's the wrong time and it's going to feel like a no. So it's as well being connected with how it can change. It's always about being in the present moment. Trusting in the present moment when you first come across something. A good example of this is if you're going in for a job interview and you walk into the building, and the second you walk into the building, you feel like, nah, this isn't it. I know that this isn't the job for me. We still go up and do the interview, but it's like, okay, honoring that you already know. It's almost like a little bit feeling into it, seeing into the future a little bit. This is the one that it's like a resonance. This is the one that's like, this feels like I've always remembered it. Like this decision, it's already happened. I already know that this is it. So it's almost this remembrance of something that happened yet on our timeline.
Yeah, that really, I remember when you told me about that in the like, you were like, oh, you got sacral and you got splenic, and I think there was something else as well, and you were like, there's no wonder you're an intuition coach and work with intuition. So I was like, and it's so there are, identifying the different types and the kind of different voices or what it feels like has been really interesting to discover that. And maybe it's that little voice in your head, but again, it's that human design just giving you that permission to just be like, you're not going crazy. Like, this is it. Just follow and trust that feeling.
Exactly. You know, my biggest dream is that one day we don't need human design, or we don't need to tell people this, because we'll already be trusting our intuition. We'll already, of course, be making decisions based on what aligns with us. We'll already be giving our natural gifts. We'll already be in our role and in our purpose, all these things. But right now, in this time of our lives, or in this collective, this part of our, you know, this evolution of humans, is we need someone to, you know, tell us that this is okay, or like, you know, this beautiful system of human design that combines so many different wisdoms, that it's like, okay, if this thing's telling me and it doesn't even know me, then I must, like, maybe I should trust it. Like, you know, I can believe all these sensations in my body that people for thousands and thousands of years used to trust, and then we lost it along the way. So again, trust. So yes. And yes, you are very good, because you have all these different parts. So I'll go to the next one. It's heart. It's the ego authority. It's very, very, very rare if you have it. Probably it's mostly manifestors will have this. And this is about aligning with what your heart is engaged by, empowered by. It's a lot about what serves you will then serve the highest good. Nothing is selfish if you have the ego intuition. You're here to create difference and to create ripples and to create newness. So what do you see that needs to be changed or done? And there's this real strong empowerment that comes from that center. So people that have the heart defined, like you do, there's this very empowering energy. And so it also makes sense you're in this line of work. So the heart, if you have it as your authority, it's like if your heart's not in something, it's not going to happen. And if you're not honestly going to benefit from something in some way, it's going to have less of impact. It's all about impact. So yeah, it really aligns with the manifested type, because they're the ones that really cause ripples wherever they go. Yeah. And then we have the self-projected, which are only going to be for projectors. And they are, their intuition speaks through their throat and through their words and through their voice. So this is the most different type that we think of. But if you think about it, their intuition becomes a lot more clear when they talk it out. And it's almost like they verbally brain dump. And when they speak it out, everything starts to make sense, and they can see, or they can hear back, do I sound excited about this? Does this feel aligned with who I am? Is this aligned with my morals? Because they have a defined identity center, which is a lot about who they are, their inherent direction, where they know they're going. So if you have self-projected, you got to talk it out. Have sounding boards, friends that understand that this is your process. It's not about getting advice. It's not about asking for their opinion. So my boyfriend, he has this, and we're doing renovations at the moment, and I'm not like this. That's not my forte. It's so much more his thing. But he was planning it all out, doing all the designing and doing all the I don't even know the words for it, but doing all the technical things. And he was wanting me to help him. And like, he doesn't want to, like, I would talk and give suggestions, and it was just one in, one ear, out the other. But I know that this is his process. So I sat there beside him, and he was just talking it out to me. And he's like, okay, yeah, I'm going to maybe put this here and like put that there. And then what do you think? And it had nothing to do with what I was saying. It was just his process. And I got bored after a while. So I went off and went into the bedroom, and it was like his whole process stopped. And he came into the bedroom. He's like, can I just sit here and, talk it out? And I wasn't even at that point really listening. And that's just his process. So it can really help if you're in relationship with self-projected, because I've had a lot of readings with self-projected projectors where their partners will say, like, why do you always ask me? You ask me for my opinion, you never listen to it. And it's like, that's because they don't need your opinion. They're just talking it out. So that's really good in voice noting yourself so you can listen back. And then see you'll get clarity, especially through journaling, because it's another way you're getting it out. And the reason why you need to do this is because in human design, we never, ever, ever make decisions purely from your mind, because that's where all conditioning lives. That's where a lot of self-doubt. And that's where, as the voice that you were just speaking about that can talk you out of everything, that's where that lives. So when you talk it out, it gets it out of your body. So you're not just like thinking about it. You're also very susceptible to your environment and the people you're around with the self-projected. So it's like, be careful of the people you share to, or like, not be careful, but have boundaries of, if a friend is full of fear, or you have a parent that is full of fear, they might not be the right person to go and talk about your new business idea with, because you can take on a lot if you're self-projected. Yeah.
No, I didn't know about that one actually, but that's me, and I can now kind of think of a few people. I'm like, yep. If I looked at their human design, I wouldn't be surprised if that was their process or their authority. And I think you touched on something really important there, like having the people around you who can understand, and whether or not they understand human design or something, but just actually voicing, this is how I make my decisions, or this is how I'm trying to learn how to make my decisions, and having that support system around you, I think that's so key, and just voicing that out loud. But I think that also comes with its own challenges of like, I don't make decisions overnight, or if you ask me a question, it will be a yes or no a very blunt answer. So it's I think, as you said, everyone, it would be amazing if everyone knew their human design, and they all, you just said, I'm a manifesting generator, this is my authority, and people are like, cool, like I know how to respond to that, and I know how to hold space for that person and things. But I think in relationships that's crucial as well. And I know that you do readings for couples, which I think is fascinating. And because I think there's a thing of, if you're missing a gate, or there's a very magic way that it can kind of really align, and you can almost, but kind of lock in more energy or more power. Is that the right way to talk about it? But just kind of if you like slot in with each other.
Yeah. So it's an electromagnetic where you basically, if it's just pure sense of energy wise of chemistry, where you feel so connected of what you don't have, you like love to be in connection. So it's a lot about opposites attract with that. And I agree with you. What happens and what can really ruin relationships is assuming and having expectations, and just, thinking that they're exactly like you, or thinking that they can read your mind, or assuming that they operate the same way as you. And then there's a lot of confusion and a lot of, dissatisfaction in our relationships, because they're not showing up how you expect them to, but it's based on your own, your own way of operating, your own expectations. So exactly as you said, like first we need the awareness of ourselves, and then we can communicate them, and we can let our partners or our business partners or our colleagues or your friends understand. And then we can all, it's transformed my relationships, especially even with family. Instead of like, now I just understand them. So, if I thought my mum was, too spontaneous, too erratic, and was too, she would just make these crazy big decisions so quickly, and it would give me so much anxiety, like, did you think about that? That's a lot of money you're about to spend. But she knew, she was a generator, she had a gut response. I wouldn't know. And now I see her as like this, just so in her flow, so abundant, just following and trusting, even if it was a big stretch, no, she knew she needed to do it. So that's even just a small example, but when we can understand how we all operate, it just creates better relationships, because there's less guessing and less, we accept ourselves more, so then we accept other people more. When we don't let ourselves be ourselves, then we don't let other people be themselves. So it just releases all this judgment. So there's just really quickly, there's the mental authority, which is pretty similar in the way that you need to use your voice to talk it out. These people are very, very open to the rest of the world. They have all their energy in their body open, so they're absorbing so much. So it's good for them to be in lots of different environments when they're making a decision, tapping into a lot of different energies when they're coming to a big decision. Obviously, all this stuff is for big decisions. It's not about what you want to eat for dinner that night. It's for the life-altering decisions. And again, journaling. I have a mental projector friend. She goes through journals like crazy, but she gains so much clarity when she's just expressing herself, getting it out. They're often very good writers and very good communicators. So yeah, again, if you're mental authority, get it out, be in lots of different environments and give yourself time to make a decision again. And then lastly, we have lunar authority, which means you're a reflector, which means you're only 1% of the population. I actually think it's way less than that. It's that's the technical statistic, but at the same time, you're so rare if you're a reflector, and you really need to give yourself time because you feel different every single day. Your identity, your sense of self, what you desire, what might be a fear or an instinct, or your emotions, or your direction. You feel different every single day, and that's your beauty. You are this all-encompassing, very magnetic and wise person, because you are so wise to the world that you're experiencing. But with that, at least giving yourself, they say, a moon cycle, so at least almost 4 weeks to be making big decisions. Because if you make a quick decision, it can put you down detours just because of how you were feeling that day, or the person you were around, or you might even be around like us, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I want to get more into intuition, I want to get more into human design, because you hear our excitement and then you absorb that. So it's whatever sticks around, whatever feels good in your body, over a month's time, and that's a good decision for you. So let yourself have slower decisions. Often this feels good to reflectors. Probably to us it's like, gosh, that feels intense, but to them it's myself time, because it's all just conditioning to think that they need to choose quickly. So if they have a slower decision, it'll lead to a faster result because they're going to be aligning with their path. So that's the reflector. They're very different to the rest.
Wow. I'm sure some people are like, oh, what am I, if you don't know already. It is, I think once you start looking into human design, it's so addictive, and it's just, you just want to delve deeper and deeper. And I guess if no one's ever looked into their human design, I mean, you get up the chart and it can be quite, you just look at it. And so I can imagine so many people are like, nope, that is just not for me. That is too technical, or it's too different. But would you say to start with authority, or where would you say, like, if you're just looking at a chart, rather than getting overwhelmed and kind of putting it on pause, where would you like start to look into?
Yes, I would look into, first of all, actually, you're not alone. It looks very overwhelming when you look at all the colors, all the charts, all the shapes, all the things. So you're not alone. But I would firstly say, like, welcome, have fun with it. Don't feel like it's like this thing you got to master straight away. Like, take it step by step. It's called an experiment, which is basically like, try it out, see how it feels. For example, if you're sacral authority, to follow your gut. So really, this is not a thing that you can pass or fail, or be a bad projector or a bad generator. It's really, I would say, come to it lightly and with fun, and as seeing it as an experiment. So if you are first new, I would definitely say firstly go to your energy type. So you're going to be one of the 5 types: a projector, a manifestor, a reflector, manifesting generator, or a generator. And look in your strategy of how you're meant to use your energy. So this is going to give you an idea of where you should focus, where you're designed to go, how you make things happen, how you create more energy, if you're one of the specific energy types. So that's definitely, it's known as your strategy to move through the world. And this is how you create more ease, more flow, and less resistance, less struggle. Because if things are really hard and just constantly roadblocks and, you know, things are getting thrown your way and you feel really frustrated and everything's not moving, that's usually a sign. It's usually because we're forcing something that's not for us.
Okay, so something that I think a lot of people ask is, how do you decipher between the difference between your intuition and fear, or your intuition saying no and fear? And it's like, is this protecting me, or is this actually my intuition saying no? Or I think that's a very, I've seen a lot on social media when I was on it, but that was a very big conversation. So many people had different ways of kind of interpreting it. So I'd love to hear your perspective on it.
Yeah. It's firstly, you have to be so in tune with yourself. I always think, and I love that you just mentioned it because it gave me a different thought of, you know, when you have a no, how do you know if it's actually your fear or your intuition no? And a lot of it can be connected with like your past trauma or past, you know, your own patterns, your own attachment style, all the things. So it's so important to know yourself, because what can happen, you can think it's an intuitive no. Again, think, like focus on that world rather than feel, because your intuition's in your body. Your intuition's just this inner, like it, especially if you're a generator, a manifesting generator, you're going to feel it in your body. It's going to feel like a body reaction. So when it's feeling like a no, but you know you maybe have an avoidant attachment, or you don't like to, you know, connect with people, or it could be more of an anxious attachment, so you're clinging onto a yes. Really, firstly, it's knowing your patterns, because your intuition is always going to feel like a calmness. It's never going to connect to any insecurities. It's never going to be mean to you. It's never going to say you're not good enough. It's never going to say that you don't know enough, all these things, or even give an argument why. Your intuition just will say, like, do this, don't do this, yes, no, feels good, doesn't feel good. It's very like, it doesn't waste time and give you arguments or a pros and cons list. That's always your mind. So that's another way of realizing if it's your mind, because this is where your fear is, your mind. But yes, when you were saying just then about when you know it's a no, sometimes it can feel calm because it's what you've always known, you know, if it connects with your trauma or something like that. So, for example, I remember, you know, this personal story, but even when I was first dating my boyfriend, any moment that I could see that there was like an out, or that there was a reason why I could like put up my guard and this wasn't it, and protect myself, because that's what my pattern is that I can protect myself and I can be more of avoidant. So if you're not attuned with that with yourself, you could be like, oh no, that was my intuition because it felt calm when I found a reason. You know, he didn't reply to my text message straight away. So this is, my intuition is telling me that this isn't the right thing because, you know, and it was just all my fear and all my own anxious, you know, all my own attachment shit. Mm-hmm. So really, firstly, it's knowing your patterns, because that can be the really tricky bit. That's where it like gets in and tries and can give you this false sense of calmness in your body, because it's like, you know, in that moment it was like, oh, you feel calm because I pushed him away. Oh, I'm back, you know, I'm back and protected myself, so that felt calm. But that wasn't my fear. So firstly, really in tune with your patterns. And then when like in a more general sense with your intuition and your fear, the fear will always be about the past or be about the future. Because if there was any fear in the present moment, there would be something coming for you. There would be a lion, a tiger, a bear, or your house is burning down, or someone is screaming at you at that moment, or whatever the fear is, it is. If it's in the present, it's happening right there. And you wouldn't even be thinking about, you wouldn't be in your mind anymore. You're in your fight or flight and you're instinctual. You're so present when that happens. So if you're weighing up, is it my intuition, is it my fear? Is there a story connected around it? Is your fear saying like, you'll never make money off that in the future. There'll never be clients for that. You won't find another person to be in a relationship with. Like, you better stay here. Or it'll go into the past of saying, last time you tried something new, it failed. Last time you opened yourself up, you'll get your heart broken. All these things. This is all fear because that's not in the present moment. Whereas your intuition's in the present moment. It says like it's a clear, concise inner knowing. And again, it will never prey on insecurities or anything that's to do with your worth or anything like that. That's all your fear if it's doing that. So yes, being your own pattern reader, staying in the present, and working to move more and more trust that instinctual intuition voice, not shaming yourself because that mind's going to still be there. It's not going to go anywhere, but it's just about that fear not having the driver's wheel, not in the driver's seat. It can be sitting there beside you in the passenger seat. You can give your fear love. You can see that it's just trying to protect you, but trust and move forward with the intuition. And then it's just practice as well.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's that as soon as you start thinking and the stories come up and you are almost trying to talk yourself out of something, I think that's almost as soon as it's like, no, that's not your intuition. And so, yeah, even last week it was something just kind of dropped in. It was like, this is not working anymore. No, remove yourself from the situation. And even as I was walking to that place to kind of remove myself from that situation, my mind was going absolutely nuts. And it was just and it was really interesting to observe because all of the stories, all of the beliefs come flooding in. And then as soon as I'd done it and I'd left, just silence. And it was almost that, your ego and your mind is going to try to protect you so much. And it's really having that trust and not overriding it, but acknowledging it and thinking, okay, thank you. And yet I know that from experience and from practice that I'm going to follow my intuition. I'm going to follow, for me, my gut. And it's almost having that strength and confidence within yourself that, okay, all of these thoughts are coming in. And it was, I was just walking down the street. I was like, I've just got to get to the end of the street. Like, I've just got to get there. Once I'm there, it's fine. But it was so interesting to observe. And I think it's, I was like, oh my God, it just keeps getting longer and longer. But it's this, I think, ability to also just sit back and observe it and think, okay, it's not pushing the thoughts away because they're always going to be there. As you said, it's having the ability to just observe them, but continue to kind of do the process and go through them and just say, oh, okay, that's interesting. That's potentially something that I'd like to look into later on once I've done this important thing to solve it. But I think, it's as soon as you start saying, oh, but maybe I should, or I'm thinking this, or and it's kind of maybe you blurt it all out and you're like, well, that's all come from your head. That has all come from your head. That's not a feeling anymore. That is just mind, ego, whatever you want to call it, going full blast to protect you.
Yeah, I'd even go as far to say that it's like lies. Half of the stuff that your mind says is just lies, fibs, conditioned thoughts. It's not even real. And the problem is that we think it's fact, and because it makes sense. And this is another distinction that your mind and your, the fear of the mind and your intuition is that your intuition doesn't make sense. When you were walking down that street, your mind was like, this doesn't make sense. You should not let go of this. How are you thinking of doing that? Because logically, maybe it sounds like, why would you let that go? But your intuition was, no, like, this isn't correct for me. And especially for you, if you have that sacral authority or you're a manifesting generator or generator, it's so important to put energy only in what feels good, what is a yes, because it will drain you. If you had forced that relationship, it would drain you and it would make you feel extremely frustrated. And then you're not your true magnetic self. So it's honoring that, even if it doesn't make sense, and it often won't because your intuition doesn't make sense, it is still the thing you can trust. It's still the right direction.
And I think that trust, only comes from practice. And that's what I kind of really emphasize with the people that I work with. It's that, it's not going to be overnight. You're suddenly going to be able to make these huge decisions based on your intuition, because that's just simply not going to happen. But it is just like giving yourself the time. And like one exercise I always say is like, go for a walk and just have no intention of where you want to go and just pick left or right. And maybe, again, this is why I always recommend people that I work with to find out what their authority is, because I don't want to suggest things and people be like, that does not work. What is she on about? So that's why I always kind of emphasize, like, please, like, whether have a reading or just at least find out what the authority is. And again, it's coming back to, which I think what is human design, it's coming back to that trust within yourself, like as we said earlier before. But you have all the knowledge within you. You know how, if you really listened and you really tuned in, you know what to do next. If it takes you a month to decide or whatever, but it's that rather than using all the external sources, it's having that autonomy over your life, and it's having that control within yourself. And obviously you can't control the outside, but you can have that sense of, I think just autonomy and confidence within yourself that, there is something guiding you and it doesn't make sense. And that is the hard bit, I think, for so many people of that. What do you mean? I'm just going into this blindly. But it is a whole process, and it is just building up that trust bit by bit, slowly, like a muscle in the gym. You're not going to go to the gym 1 minute and then be super fit and be able to run a marathon or whatever. And it is, it would be absolutely incredible if children grew up learning how to do this. And then when they got to their Saturn return, it was like, cool, we know what we're doing.
Don't even need a big Saturn return then. It's exactly how you said. Well, human design was actually first channeled, or was brought to this, brought to us for the younger generation, for our kids, so that you could be right from the get-go, can know how to trust your intuition, or not be so heavily conditioned and be running purely off your mind. It was so many ancient wisdoms were following their intuition, but we lost that along the way because of logic or what makes sense. And then, we see that there's so many frustrated, burnt out, bitter people because we're not trusting this internal navigation that we all have. And so many people as well that are so lost because they don't realize that all the answers are within them. And I couldn't agree with you more in the sense of like, just start small, start experimenting. I will say it all the time. Like, I'm not someone that thinks you need to throw the baby out with the bathwater, or feel like, oh, now I need to quit my job. Now I need to leave my relationship. Now I need to change all my friendship group and move cities and burn everything down. It's like, no, just start really small and just connecting with what feels most truthful to you, and what feels like, at the end of the day, just what feels good. Like, we make things so much more complicated and so much harder, and we get almost, we think we're being a good human if we're struggling, or if things are hard and we're getting through it and we're busy and we're, we wear it as this big badge of honor. And it's like, for what? To have these crazy medical bills, or to, be on autopilot in your life. So I agree with you. Just starting small, and it's not failing or passing. It's just experimenting with it. And I love your walk. That's beautiful. And even as well, if you're a generator or manifesting generator, on your walk, just constantly be asking your gut, do I like this? Do I not like that? You walk past a shop front. Oh, do I like the things in there? Do I want to go get a coffee from that coffee store? Do I feel pulled into that coffee store? Just always play with it. It can be fun. It doesn't have to be hard and heavy.
Yeah, and I think that is something that a lot of people I've noticed are a bit fearful of, that it's that, if I start following my intuition, I'm going to, I don't know, end up living in the jungle or having to give up my whole lifestyle. And I like avocado on toast, or going to the beach and surf it, and it's this kind of whole, what is this? What's my life going to look like? And I don't want it to change that much. And I think it's definitely that nope, I'm just not even going to look at it because I don't want things to change. And I think that bringing up Saturn return again, but
I think that's a lot of fear for a lot of people, that people are kind of holding on to that. Everything's fine as it is. It's fine. But it's like, well, it could be great, right? It could be absolutely incredible. And I know that you finished your Saturn return.
Yeah.
And I've gone into mine in March. So, but if you want, like, if you're happy to touch on a little bit of how human design helped you move through your Saturn return, because I know a lot of, me and my friends at the moment are all going through it, and it's an interesting time. But I'm realizing the harder I hold on to things, the more frustrating, the more exhausted I'm getting. And actually, it is just stop fighting it, let it be, and soften into it and trust.
Yeah, that's all you can do in your Saturn return. So yes, I've been through mine, and how important it is to be connected and like grounded in your sense of self. And that was a big fear as well for me, of like, I'm feeling called to this new direction, but I don't want to like let go of all aspects of my life. Like, that's scary, and there's a grieving process towards that. Like, does that mean I can't? I love my avocado on toast. That's definitely still a staple. But like, does that mean that I can't go out and dance with my friends, or does that mean that I can't? All these things, but this is all just conditioning of what it has to look like. If your intuition or you want to do something, that's what you're here to do, not create a story around it. So what I found with my Saturn return was exactly as you said, and what can be really helpful if you're coming into your Saturn return. So it's going to be around 28, 29, you're going to start feeling it. And then everyone's is different for the exact time. Mine was, like, I feel like I started mine quite early, and then mine was finished at around 30, 31 is usually when it does. And with that, it helps exactly how Ola was just saying, is that when we surrender into it and you don't try and fight it, what can happen is that you can try and cling on to what you've always known. But Saturn is here to shake things up. Saturn wants to put you on your aligned path. And that's what happens often for us when we around turning 30, is we start to question things. We start to look at things differently. We're like, this thing that always used to work for me no longer does. This relationship no longer feels exactly in alignment with me, or this job is starting to make me feel really frustrated and things aren't flowing like they used to. And this is because Saturn's come in to intervene. He's known as like the grandfather archetype of, can be a disciplinarian of wherever you're not aligned with yourself, wherever you're not being truthful, wherever you're not following your intuition, wherever you're living from your mind. He's going to shake it up, and he's going to make it, if you're not listening, he'll get louder, and then, you might get an injury, or you might have, really crazy happen. So it's a lot about paying attention and then going with it. I used to always say, like, if there was something, I remember there was something happening with a friend. We were in business together, and we really needed to have this conversation, and I was putting it off, and I knew that if I put it off any longer, then Saturn's going to do something that could irrecoverably shift that relationship, and it could actually turn into something a lot worse than what it needed to be. So I was like, okay, I'm going to put my big girl pants on and have this really uncomfortable conversation, but I'm so glad I did, because I believe it saved it. If it didn't, who knows what would have happened. So really surrendering into it and seeing it as an actually really beautiful time. I look back on mine as, even though it was some of the hardest moments and definitely some of the most isolating moments, and I had a lot of nights crying in my bed and like dark night of the soul. I was in Berlin at the time. I was living in Berlin, and I really isolated myself, but so much growth, so much healing. I finally feel like I stepped into who I truly was. And now I look back and I'm so glad for that time. And all the things that let go, I look back and it was really for a reason, because it was shedding all that wasn't me. And I was able to really become who I truly was. And from there, it's like you have this like fertile and beautiful foundation to grow and to prosper and to bring into everything that is for you. So there's a really, like, before Saturn return and after Saturn return is very different. But if I could give any form of unqualified opinion, but just from my own experience, is stay firm in who you truly are. Don't try and fight it or cling on to how you think things should look. Just be open to other potential and other possibilities, and be kind to yourself. This is the time to, like, up all the self-care and the kind words to yourself. It's not meant to be easy. So you're not doing anything wrong. Really just surrender into it and, again, have fun with it. Like, it's a cool time. Like, this is like the strongest portal for growth. I'm someone that's like a bit of a, a junkie for all this stuff. So I love it. So I'm like, yes, got through that, that shadow bit. I made progress on that, very like, probably the most conditioned, like, high achiever way of looking at it. But I'm like, okay, got through that. Let's, that, yeah, just flow with it. Don't try and fight it. That's the worst you can do. It'll just get harder.
Yeah. I think it's only been a few months, but it's as soon as I feel like I let it go, and that conversation that you had with your friend really resonates, because there's something that I'm just putting off a little bit at the moment. And there's almost, because I have my kind of experience with how the universe will get me back in alignment, it's almost like, Ola, just do it. Like, we don't even want to know what it's going to bring up if you don't do it. And that's not to, like, instill fear into people, but it's just do it. Just seriously, if something's playing on your mind or whatever, just get through the fear. And sometimes we don't need to sit with the fear and figure out where it came from, and just get on with it and do it. And that's how this podcast was born. It was like, enough, just do it. Even if you're afraid, just flip and do it.
Yeah, it's empowering, if anything. Like, Saturn is the most empowering, the most, like, bringing you up to the highest self. And we can, our mind doesn't like it because it wants to stay and doesn't want the change. And it's really seeing that, like, no, this is like catapulting me. This is, forcing, like, we want to be releasing the things that aren't actually for us, because it's blocking us from what is. So when you can see it as, like, this is all for your benefit. And I honestly, like, I really loved my Saturn return. Yes, I cried a lot, but I also laughed, and it was the happiest time. And yeah, when you play with it, it's fun. It's like, yeah, okay, next thing, like, I was manifesting like crazy. My whole business was really born through that time. So towards the end of it, especially, like, it really brought so much beauty and, like, opportunities and people. Like, the people in my life now are so aligned with who with me. My business feels so aligned. Everything really does. But if I looked at my life before my Saturn return, I definitely couldn't say the same thing. It feels like a totally different life, and it doesn't need to be. If you're already in alignment, then Saturn's not going to change anything. This is the thing. Some people, Saturn barely even, like, you don't even notice a difference, because they're so authentically themselves. They're so trusting, or they're already had trusted themselves. So Saturn will only do what it needs to be done. It's not going to unnecessarily make your life harder. Even though it feels like it.
I think that's the perfect way to wrap things up on that, because I think that's, and I think even if, as you say that, if anyone is feeling a little bit of, like, anxiety or fear, it's almost that is kind of already knowing that something's out of alignment, and that's kind of like, oh God. Whereas, as you said that, I was kind of like, cool, like, let's see what, like, because it's, I feel that hopefully I have been living in alignment, but it is very clear the things that are out, and they are just like, right, gone, like, off, like, Instagram, gone overnight. And it was like, okay, cool, we're doing this then, are we? And but it's just, it's following those nudges and going with it, I think. So thank you for sharing about that. I think hopefully a lot of people are feeling a lot calmer and excited for it, rather than this kind of fearful thing that I think it's being portrayed as and things.
No, yeah. And even just lastly on that, it's like, we think that we know best, like, we know the best way, and, like, we have this whole idea of how everything should unfold, and it's like, we know nothing. Like, just be open to And like, for example, who knows what's going to come from, like, what's going to channel through you because you're not on Instagram, because you're not being tainted, especially for you in your chart. Like, you have so much energy in your body chart. You're here to condition other people. You're here to share other people. You're here to make difference to other people, not to be like muddying or muddling your point of view, your perspective. And that can happen so easily when we're taking on so much energy in social media. So who knows what's going to channel through you in the next couple of years, if you're, or months or weeks, wherever, because you're not like tarnished. Like, we can never know why your intuition is guiding you towards something. So the less we think we know best, and the more that you're like, no, there is such a bigger plan for me. I'm not by accident. Then you can like align with that and step into that more and more.
Oh, I love talking to you. I feel so like empowered, and I love that you've kind of got this in depth, and you're like, well, yeah, of course it's like that because this, and it's like, oh, okay. I can just like soften and relax and breathe. And yeah, I think that's why I keep listening to the recording from our reading, because it is, you think in that moment, I'm going to remember everything, whatever, but you do pick up on different things. And I love that I've never actually made notes on it, because I trust that what I hear in that moment is exactly what I need to hear in that moment. And I think if anyone is listening, I would highly, highly, highly recommend just booking in a reading, because it is your magic, and it's so intuitive, and it is, you just picked the right way, and exactly what I needed to hear. So yeah, do you have any final comments or anything to wrap up with?
Thank you so much for saying that. That makes me really happy to hear, because you do get something different every single time. And it's always what you need to hear. I feel like with things like that, it's like trusting. And you as well, I'm looking at your chart, you have a passive brain, which means so much is going in, but what you retain and what you hold on to is what you need in that moment. So it's like trusting that, like, I don't need to remember the whole thing, but when I listen to this, if I'm feeling called to, then this is exactly what I needed. So that makes me really happy to hear. I feel like we really covered it really beautifully, and I'm really proud of you as well for tackling the fear of, even starting your podcast and really following your intuition. It's such an inspiration to other people, and especially, you as a 5/1 to be a teacher in that, to be the person that you're here to, share your findings, sharing your experience, sharing what you know. Congratulations on starting this podcast. And I'm really, really happy that you asked me on. It's been such a beautiful conversation.
Oh, yeah, I'm so grateful. And yeah, thank you. I'm sure, I think I'm being called to like another reading to go a little bit deeper. And I'm like, oh, I just love it. I absolutely love it. Especially at the Saturn Return. I think it can be such a powerful and empowering thing for people to have. And just that reassurance sometimes when things might feel like they're just being shaken up and you're in the snow globe and everything's all around you, and just having that kind of anchor almost, even if you know it, sometimes you are going to get swayed, but just having that little like, oh, I can just listen to this, and it just brings you back down, and just a little bit of grounding, I think, as well. So thank you so much. And I'm sure, hopefully I can bring you back on at some point, and we can go even deeper. But just thank you. Thank you. So if people wanted to find out how to get reading with you or to learn more about human design, where can they find you? And also, what are you offering at the moment?
Yes, exactly. I said we have readings one-on-one. I do relationship, also family, if you're wanting to understand and be able to parent your child. That's all on my website at, I'll give the link, but it's www.hillarymcveigh.com. And I also teach human design. I have an advanced certification where I teach you to become a reader and to incorporate in your own business. So we have that one as well, which is really lovely. I have a cohort starting at the end of the year. I'm just running a cohort now. I also have a retreat coming up if you're in Australia, all about reconnecting to yourself, to your purpose, to your body, to your intuition, all the things that we've talked about, really able to, deep dive over a long weekend. And then I also will have my own podcast launching. It's called the Designed as You podcast. So it'll be a lot about human design. I haven't asked Ola yet, but I definitely want to have you on. So yes, that's other places. So there's lots as well. Designed as You for Instagram, you'll find me.
Amazing. And I'll put all the information in the show notes below as well. But yeah, the retreat, I got the email for it and I was like, oh, if only I was on that side of the world. But it looks magic. So yeah, highly recommend. And yeah, as I've said, the reading was magic. And yeah, just listening to it over and over again. It's not like a 1 hour thing and then that's it. It brings so much wisdom and clarity over such a long period of time. So yeah, I highly recommend. So thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed that episode. I felt just listening back to it feels amazing and so energizing, so empowering. I can't say it enough. Hillary is so wise and knowledgeable about human design, but also just really applying it to everyday life and staying very grounded in it all. So I'm very, very grateful that she agreed to come on the podcast, and I hope that I will be able to have her on again soon. And yeah, if you have any questions for her or anything about human design or anything that we spoke about, send them across and then I will hopefully get her on again and we can address those. And what I really am being called to do and to start doing is to pull some cards, or pull a card at the end of these podcasts, and maybe I'll do it at the beginning as well. But just seeing what comes up for kind of whoever's listening, the collective, and just seeing what messages the universe has for us all today. Okay, so we've got the Star Keeper. So if you're watching the video, it's an absolutely, these cards, just all of them anyway, but it's the Cosmic Ancestor, See the Light by Staying Grounded. And there's almost like a portal here through the heart. So I always, when I'm reading cards or, I don't know, seeing angel numbers or whatever it is, I always, before I kind of look at, I don't know, Google it or look at the book that I've got here as well for the interpretation, I always try and tune in and figure out, what does this mean to me, or what am I being called to? And yeah, for me, it's just this. Also, there's just a bright light right in the middle of the portal, and it's, for me, that's just the heart. So it's that portal through the heart, and really staying connected to that. But it's also this rock and the stone, which is very grounding energy. And yeah, there's a gem at the third eye, and then it's almost this like white light connecting all the way from this third eye up, even through this kind of orb around. So for me, it's this staying very, very connected to my heart, to the earth, to the stone, to this ground, and also, yeah, allowing what wants to come through, because I think there's a very interesting dynamic when you start connecting with your spirit guides, source, the universe, whatever you want to call it, or whoever you connect with. And it's very easy to float away. It's very easy to become ungrounded and really just want to live in this alternative or different realm. And I think that's also what this, for me, what this kind of shield or bubble around this statue is. It's that really grounding, actually earthly pull down almost, of not allowing yourself to float up too high, and allowing it to, yeah, just really almost holding you down to this earth. And it, for me, it's the colors are beautiful. It's this white, light blue, dark blue, kind of navy, kind of aquamarine colors. And for me, that is just water. That is, also a very grounding, at times, element, but it's a big protection of allowing the light in and staying grounded so you don't get sucked into that darkness as well. There are so many elements to this that I could go on and on, but that was my interpretation. So we'll see what the book says. So, cosmic ancestor, seed the light by staying grounded. You're an ancient keeper of the stars, here to anchor and seed your light in your unique way. You've likely been incarnating on Earth for some time, dedicated to an era of awakening and bringing about a long-awaited shift in the planet's evolution. We're at a tipping point now. I think we can all agree that. The survival of Earth and all its species is coming to a head. The more grounded you remain during this transitional period, the more helpful you'll be. The more you tend to the flames of your own heart, the more love you'll anchor onto this planet. The wisdom of the stars is imprinted in your soul. The more soul fragments you call home, the more this wisdom is seeded here. You may be called to be in different places in the world to anchor this light, perhaps by taking a trip or living in a certain location. You may also find yourself experiencing awakening symptoms. The more grounded you remain, the more stable Earth's energy will become and the less reactive humanity will be. You're here for a double mission, to grow as an individual and as part of a larger collective that's bringing about a shift in frequency. Trust that you can be in the world, but not of it, and lead a truly glorious life. And just a little activation or mantra to say to yourself is, I acknowledge that I'm a star keeper. I choose to anchor my light and stay as grounded as possible. So yeah, that real big tending to your heart. And for me at the moment, I've really been focusing on simplifying things. Really, yeah, I think so much, as I've always said, and will continue to say, so much of the external world is very, there's a lot of information out there, whether it's helpful or not. And it can really confuse you. It can really confuse your intuition. Well, not confuse your actual intuition, but it can confuse you trying to follow your intuition. It can just really muddle things up, especially when you are starting to follow your intuition. And I've definitely found that the last month. There's been a lot of energy moving around. We've had the Lionsgate portal, we've had the Aquarius full moon, and I'm an Aquarius, so it's really hit hard. We've got so many planets in retrograde, including Venus, so really asking us to reflect on how do we treat ourselves, how do we love ourselves, how much do we love ourselves, and are we doing something? A mantra that I've been using is, what would someone who loves themselves do? And this has been really challenging. This has been really confronting. And so it's just, for me at the moment, that card is just really simplifying things so that we can stay grounded. There is a lot of energy moving around at the moment, a lot of shifts happening, whether you can feel it or not, very collective. And very on an individual level as well. And it is that ability to be able to ground amongst it all. And also knowing that some techniques that maybe you've used in the past maybe aren't useful at the moment, or aren't that beneficial, or aren't strong enough. And so for me, it's just really been removing the things that have been ungrounding me, rather than me trying to ground. It's me actually trying to remove things that are ungrounding me. And for me, that's been coming off Instagram completely, which has been just the best thing ever. As much as I loved it, as grateful as I am to it for showing me a lot of things about myself, and really showing that I can step up, I can speak quite easily without planning ahead. I can write, I can create content, but I'm very grateful for all of those lessons. But at the end of the day, it's simply not serving me anymore, and it is ungrounding me. And there are a lot of things coming through right now, and I'm excited to share them, but I am also being called to find a different way to share them. And yeah, it's an interesting ride. And so, yeah, I highly recommend just doing what you can to ground and removing what is feeling ungrounding to you at the moment. And if you don't really know what that is, kind of tune in and just ask yourself, just close your eyes, take a deep breath, and just ask yourself, where is my energy being drained right now? Where am I putting energy where I don't want it to go? Where am I putting energy where I feel that it should be going, but I don't feel energized by that? At the end of the day, we need to feel energized and fueled by the things that we do, the people that we speak to, the places and surroundings that we put ourselves in. And if they're not doing that, then something needs to change. So yeah, on that note, stay grounded, simplify things. I mean, even unsubscribing from emails, or coming off Instagram for a little bit, or just really, it doesn't have to be huge worldly changes, but just these little things that maybe are also distracting you. That can be a question that you can ask yourself: where am I being distracted from what I actually want to be doing? Thank you so much for watching another episode of Fully Blooming. If you're feeling inspired and motivated, please share with anyone you think may benefit from this video, and comment below if you have any ideas, suggestions, or comments about future episodes that you'd like to know about. Thank you so much for your support, and see you at the next episode.